Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please drop us up, drop a like, and let us know your thoughts below in the comments. Also, please consider supporting our podcast via the link below. It really helps us out. Idrissa, welcome to the World XP podcast, man. How are you?
Well, man. Appreciate you having me, my guy.
Absolutely. So for the people listening, we did a player spotlight over on the World XP Soccer channel. Go check that out. Where we're going to get a little bit more in depth into the behind the scenes of a pro football club and kind of the different things that goes on with that, the journey of the team that Sesay played for and now is working for, helped found, run, manage, I don't know, all the above. But before I butcher it more, why don't you do a quick intro for the people listening, and then we'll hop into the question from the last guest, and we'll just jump right into it.
For sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Idrissa Sesay. I go by Sesay. My last name. It's a long story behind that, man. I am currently working for the Maryland Bobcats, professional team based in Maryland, obviously. I work there as the director of operations and HR as well. Prior to that, I've served several positions as well, but we get into that a little bit more.
Sounds good. So the question from the last guest, what is one skill in your industry that you think like that you learned that could help somebody in a different industry reach like the peak? So a valuable skill that you learned that you could be applicable to somebody else in a different industry.
Mhm. It's a great question. I like that. I think it would have to be emotional intelligence. I think that is very, I think it's beneficial in many areas. I think that's something that I've done a great job of showcasing throughout my corporate world and obviously my passion with soccer, well, football for real. But I think emotional intelligence is something definitely that's key. Being able to read people, being able to understand the situation based on how people are reacting, how to properly handle any situation, regardless of the person's temperament, whatever the scenario may call for. But you have the emotional intelligence to read the situation and execute and handle accordingly. You'll go far in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are able to read those situations and then also the external factors within the
Mhm.
situation, like the follow-up question that I was going to have on that was in corporate world, things go a lot slower. There's a
Yep.
lot less tension. There's a lot
Mhm.
less like on the line in terms of having to make decisions quickly or resolve conflicts quickly. Like you notice, and people who are listening who play soccer know this. Like if you get in a conflict at practice or during a game, like it's a split second decision on how
Yep.
to handle that and what to do. And there's like a you take in all everything involved, the personalities of the people that are in the conflict. Like, for example, if I get into something with somebody on the field versus
Yep.
an unnamed teammate of ours, and
I
like
wonder
how,
who that could be.
yeah, we can, like you would handle that differently because there'd be a different,
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if Eric's mad, then something must have happened versus like
Yeah.
something else, right? And you quickly take all these things into consideration.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas in corporate world, if somebody sends you like a nasty email or whatever, you could take 2 hours to decide how you want to deal with that.
Exactly.
Um, so how have you been able to learn that? Have you been in situations or like are there specific stories that you remember where maybe you got burned by handling something wrong and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again next time? Or like, what was the thought process from you in one, realizing it, but two, then translating it into how you deal with things on a day-to-day basis, right? You mentioned your director of operations and HR,
Mm.
and HR is a lot of it is dealing with conflict. So, like, how was it a difficult process for you to learn that? Did something like have to slap you in the face to be like, okay, I really need to learn how to do this better, or things are not going to go well for me? Like, how did it work itself out for you?
Good question, bro. I think it's more so of my temperament. Um, I'm very low, chill, laid back, but also I'm very observant, and I've always had that approach and try to think from a different perspective than your own. I think sometimes, at times, we get into too much of a selfish position. All right. For me, throughout my life, I've always tried to approach in a manner of understand, like, hey, this person is acting this way, this person's saying this for whatever reason, right? They may or may not be in control. It's up to me to react in a manner that either improves the situations or deters it, right? Thinking from that aspect, I think at first it was very clear when I first entered a corporate position as an event coordinator slash executive assistant working for this company called the Tower Companies in DC. The vice president at the time told me like, hey, you have a real knack for real estate and you have a temperament to be able to handle very hostile environments because you always have a calm demeanor and such. And also in coaching. Coaching was the other thing that made it very clear for me. Just like how I deal with kids, understanding that no kid is the same. Like the approach always has to be very unique. Trying to figure out how I can get the best out of this player, regardless of all of their day-to-day issues that they experience as kids, especially in this day and age. And the last part, I'm sure you experienced this, man, is relationships, dude. Like, yo, women have the tendency to test you in many ways, man. And I think me having the temperament I realized that I'm very well at resolving conflicts. I'm very well at showing patience that's needed, sometimes a bit to a fault. But those different experiences in life definitely have shaped me to where I am now to be able to pretty much handle anything, man.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
you said the last part about sometimes to a fault. It's like there's a comedian that has a bit about that, whereas
yeah,
it's like you go into the airport or whatever, and they're like, your flight's delayed, and you're just like,
yeah,
okay, and
yeah,
then your wife is like, no, don't let them talk to you like that, and you're like, yeah, give me my money back. They're
yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly.
you shouldn't
Bro.
talk to me that
Yep.
way.
I'm that.
Um,
I'm that.
yeah.
Like, it's not that serious, bro. It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah,
We keep it moving.
100%. And then drawing that balance of when it actually is a good time to say like, "Hey,
Yeah,
no, don't that's too far." Like,
exactly.
and that line is different for everybody,
Yeah,
and that's okay. But it's an interesting balance to kind of sort through. And like we talked about, like we mentioned before, all the different factors in a situation. Maybe that boundary is closer than in one situation than it is in another.
yeah,
Um, and definitely when coaching, especially youth players, like
yeah.
learning when you can be like, hey man, that's unacceptable.
Hmm.
Like you've got to try harder, for instance, or when to be like, okay, you're not having a good day. That's okay. We'll do something fun today.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to give them the satisfaction of like, okay, these kids are going to be difficult today, so we'll
Hmm.
just scrimmage all the time because I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Versus like, okay, no, you've had a rough whatever, like it's okay. We'll
Yeah.
lay off it. Um,
Now that's
because
a good
kid,
point.
go ahead.
That's a good point, man. You have to be observant of that, man. The fact that you're saying that shows that you're attentive to that, bro. Bro, they're kids. That's the first thing we have to realize. They're kids, and they deal with so much stuff at home that we're not even privy to, right? So it's up to us as mentors, not just a coach, to figure out, hey, all right, my top player is now coming in dragging feet. He's not being ecstatic as he usually is. The energy is low. He's not talking to teammates. He's not doing their signature dap that they do. What's going on, right? So it's up to me to step in, like, and try to figure it out. And at times, man, it's just a conversation that goes a long way. And at times, honestly, it's just playing, like creating activities and going through the motions, and all of a sudden their attitude starts changing. And also, you got to have that personal touch to it to keep the boundaries, but at the same time, show the player that you care because you don't want to cross the line with obviously what they tell you and what they discuss. Because some stuff, in truth, unfortunately, is none of your business. But you just try to show that you try to display that you care about them. And once you do that, bro, these players, you'll be surprised what they're capable of doing, man.
Yeah, and you have to have a level of fairness as well. Like because if you don't want to be like a hard ass, and
Yeah.
then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they don't want to play for you anymore
Oh, yeah.
because they don't like you. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you have to push them past where they think that they can go. But there has to be a level of reciprocity. Like, okay, I'm gonna push you,
Yeah.
but can we agree on this standard? So like one thing that I learned when I was coaching very early on was like if we're doing a passing drill and the quality is poor, it's like
Yeah.
I ask them like, do you guys think that this went well?
Yeah.
And then if they're like no, It's like, all right, well, now we're doing burpees or whatever. Like
Yeah.
we agreed that it didn't go well. It wasn't just an arbitrary decision from coach that now he's like, "Oh, coach, we can't do anything right." It's like, no, we all agree this didn't go well,
Yeah.
and now this is the consequence for that.
Yeah.
Um, and that makes things a lot easier when they tell you that they were like, "Hey, man, was that good?" And they're like, "No."
No, no, that's a fact, bro. That question, I always ask the same thing. Like, yo, this is the quality that you guys. This is the expectation of the club. Are you guys
hmm
satisfied with what you're seeing? Those two questions. Every time I ask it, they're honest.
They
They
are
know.
honest. And then the
Yeah,
follow-up is like, am I being unrealistic? Like, can you do this? Because sometimes as a coach and you want to push them, you
yeah,
go a little bit past what they're capable of, and so
yeah,
then they don't perform it. So you're like, okay, is this too hard?
yeah,
And if you come from a place of authenticity,
yeah,
then normally then you can find that line of like optimal. It's like when people get into flow state or the zone or whatever it's called, like
yeah,
the zone of optimal developments,
yeah,
and you get into that place where it's like not too far but not
yeah.
too easy, and you get into like, anyways.
No,
Um,
no, that's spot on, bro. That's you say that. I think Alex gave me some insight. Alex, the head coach of the pro team,
mhm.
gave me the insight one day when we were talking about a session. He was like, "Yo, bro, sometimes." You have to challenge them and prepare a session that's above what they're capable of,
Yep.
and you'll be surprised how they respond. I
Mhm.
was like, okay. Tried it one day, and it's crazy because prior to that, like a week before, the usual that they're doing, they're not operating at a high level. So I'm like, okay, let me just try this. I did it, and they met the standard. And I'm just like, this is what it is with kids, bro. It's always a fluctuation, bro.
Yeah.
So you just have to be understanding and patient, man.
Yeah, and then the next practice they can't pass a ball in a straight line, and you're like, "What just happened?"
That's a
Yeah,
fact.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough for sure. Okay, so you mentioned the coach of the pro team, and that's kind of what we're meant to talk about today. Um, so talk to me about Bobcats. Well, actually, all right, you could say if you can't answer this, but there
mhm.
was some stuff about you guys in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that or not really?
Can't really touch on it, unfortunately, because where it is right now, it's not even up to me. It's really I feel like where we are.
Or can you just explain the situation for like what's been public
So for those
facing?
who don't know, essentially what happened was crazy. We were accused of not being eligible um, towards the ending of the season, which didn't make any sense. If we were operating from start to finish, eligible, then all of a sudden we're ineligible. So we didn't understand what that basis was, and the reason that they gave us, unfortunately, I can't disclose that. It was just wasn't credible. So now we're doing what we have to do on our end to make sure that is rectified. But I wish
Yeah.
I could go more in detail. But
So, well, the piece I think that is important is that you guys ran away with the league in terms of the regular season, and when they said you were ineligible, it's before playoffs. So that's the piece
exactly,
that
yeah,
makes it important and a little bit more. Like if they had said it's the
exactly.
first game of the season or whatever, then like
Yeah.
it's slightly different. But it's like you guys were eligible all season,
Hmm.
first place in the league regular season, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
And then going into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden this comes down. So
Exactly.
okay, more to come on that. I'm
For
assuming
sure. Oh,
from
for sure. For
okay.
sure. Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. If you guys are curious or want to know more, there'll be more coming. I'm sure. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of
Mhm.
Bobcats then and how you guys ended up well being
Okay.
ineligible, but in this situation in the first place. So, but the beginning of Bobcats like just go through the history, I guess, and kind of
Okay.
where you guys started,
Yeah.
and how you guys got to where you are.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm speaking from my perspective, but
Of
everyone
course.
has their own. Um, so where we started first on my end, I was managing a high level amateur team called Washington Elite. We were playing in WPL at the time. And the team was consistent of a few of my friends from high school and college. And it was like we were nice, right? The team was coached by Coach Paul, which was the former technical director of Bobcats. So essentially, what happened there was we were dominating our league. We won. I think this was back in 2016, 15. I can't remember, but simultaneously, um, a friend of mine, Koku, he had wanted to be involved with the WPL team as well. So he brought some of the guys that were playing in other teams, and we merged like a super team. So that's how we came up to end up winning the league that year. So Koku had who's in contact with Jay Jide Saba, aka Jay, who is the president and CEO, the man, the myth, the legend, man. One of the honestly best people you'll ever meet in life, bro. I wish eventually you have a pleasure to meet him. But essentially, he was managing a team in Baltimore during the same time frame I was managing in DC. So he had a Baltimore elite team. I had a DC elite team. Koku bridged the gap. Was like, yo, man, we should do something together. We're always constantly being mercenaries to other teams. All right, we need to figure out something that's different. We need to build something that's for us, right? And unfortunately, we just got tired of doing that without anything to show for it, to be honest, man. Obviously, some guys getting paid there and there, Spanish league vibes, but we're more like, how are we impacting the community? How are we leaving a legacy? So we decided from there, all right, let's get together, form the team. And that's when we decided to create World Class Premier League. World Class Premier was a team. Coke was the club that Koku had created prior. So we just put Elite in there afterwards because the team I was managing is called Washington Elite. Very simple. But when you hear it, it's a word vomit. Word
Yeah.
vomit. It's just whatever. We didn't give it much thought. We were just trying to make things happen. But fast forward our first season. Again, this team was stacked, dude. Like it was crazy. I've never been in a team like that when I mean everybody is good. It was one of the best footballing experiences I've ever had. And honestly, I think about it a lot. But first season in UPSL, we did very well. Right, we end up losing in the quarterfinals to I think like Soda City or something like that. But we weren't happy about it. So
National quarterfinals.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So then the following year, it was lights out, dude. Everything clicked. It was lights out. We went undefeated in the regular season. We're all the way in nationals. And while we're in nationals, I was like, you know what? We had Koku and Jay was basically we had multiple discussions. Eventually, it was the decider like we need to do a name change because we have different ideas. And essentially, that's where Maryland Bobcats was born. The whole representation of Bobcats was the owners at the time, including Jay or Townsend alumni. So the whole, you know, Tiger thing there. So that's the whole birth from there. But I'm sure Jay can give more insight in terms of the theme behind the creation of Bobcats in that regard. But yeah, so literally as we're approaching the Final Four, we change our name, Maryland Bobcats. We do well, did a good job there, made it to the finals, played against this Hispanic team. I don't remember their name, but honestly, bro, tech. Those guys were tech everybody, man, from the goalie to the guys on the bench. I mean, it was a tough match, bro. It was a tough match, man. And I was pissed because I was actually on the bench, dude. I was heated. But Coach Paul, which is one of my favorite coaches till this day, is currently still my mentor, man. Great person. Coach Paul, who was serving as the technical director at the time and also coach as well, he was like, "Yo, you need to get Sesay in the game." It's like right now he can change the game up, like, but the position that they needed to substitute was a fullback, right? And I was a winger, and Coach Paul looked at him like, "Dude, he can play. Trust me, he can play any position." And the head coach and the assistant coach was Philip Nana. Philip Nana was the head coach at the time. Um, Basically, they came up to like, "Yo, can you play fullback?" I'm like, "Bro, I can play anything. I'm just trying to play." Right. And
Good answer for
yeah,
young players. Good
right. You
answer.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can
you
play.
could
If
play
you,
anywhere.
it's not that complicated. If you have IQ and ball, you can pretty much, and some experience, you can pretty much make an impact.
But that's how you get in the game. If you're a young player, like
Yeah,
coaches, like I saw somebody. The amount of times I've seen a player on the bench,
yeah,
coach go to them and they'd be like, "Can you play here?" And they're like, "No, I only play 10 or I only play
yeah,
4." It's just like, no,
yeah,
just say you go and just play.
yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, and
continue.
I'm it. I'm it. I'm it. So Phil and Ben is the assistant coach. They came up to me like, "Yo, play fullback, play right back." As soon as I came in, immediately impacted the game. And I believe at the time we were I believe it was 2-1, right? And I remember this like till this day, bro. I was cooking. I'm not even gonna lie. I went in there making tackles. And mind you, I've never played it before. I never played the position, but I'm a winger. So I just approach the process. Okay, if I'm being attacked as a winger, right, I know how he's going to move, right?
Yeah.
Because I know if he does this and this, he's trying to do this, right? So I put myself in a situation like I'm playing against myself. So that was the mental preparation. And for me, when it comes to defending, I don't bite. I stand up. So you're gonna have to do some ridiculous step overs. You're gonna have to smoke me with speed. I'm not biting, right?
Yeah.
And after you give me a little bit of space and you put that ball in front of you, I just cut my body in front of you.
Yep.
That's how I defend. It doesn't hasn't failed me since. So I did a lot of that. And the decisive killer game was when I played it to my boy Levy, which is one of the top players in the DMV, man. He went to UMBC and also got drafted in Philadelphia Union. Quality player, quality person. I played it Levy, made an overlap and run. Levy played a through ball because we've been playing forever. So he knows if I give it to him, the ball's coming my way. I cross it, and Levy follows up, boom, scores. And the game dead after that. And everybody
Hey.
crazy, bro. And we have footage of that. So eventually put this up somewhere. So I'll send it to you so you can see it.
All right. All right.
But yeah, no, but after that, we won, obviously. It was a great celebration. And that's where our name grew, right? In that sense, we started getting interest from pro leagues. Even prior to the NPSL was one of the leagues that we were dabbling in. Then Nisa came calling, right? And we answered. And that's how essentially Bobcats was born, stepping into that professional environment, third tier.
Talk about the transition between amateur to pro, or I guess
Mm,
semi-pro. I don't know, whatever it is.
yeah.
High level amateur to pro.
Yep.
Because in the US is very different from Europe in terms of there's not really a clear path, right? You don't
Yep.
go and you win your league and you get promoted to the next one. It's like it's not like that at all. So it's very confusing for, well, everyone. Even like I understand it kind of, but like there's USL Championship, USL One, then USL Two and MPSL, then NISA is kind of its
Yep.
own thing, and then MLS has got like MLS Next Pro and
Yeah.
MLS this all this other stuff.
Yeah.
How were you guys talking with USL at all, or like how what was the like were you aiming to go pro or did they call you?
So both, bro. Always the end game was for us to reach the highest level possible, right? And but obviously you already know the funding required for that. It's massive. So at the
Bonkers.
time that we're in, we weren't at a capacity in more ways than one to make that massive jump. I think NISA was a great tool in terms of our development. Even though it is a professional league, it still was new to us, right? It gave us the platform to for exposure, but also for growth internally and externally, right? Um, so for us, to answer your question, I think it all falls back to what I said prior in the spotlight was professionalism, right? Um, the approach that you have to have. People don't understand how important it is with these minor details on the pitch and off the pitch, right? You have practice at 8, so you're not pulling up at 8, right? You pull up 7:15, right? The earliest. Some people pull up at 7. They do their own pregame, pre-practice workout prior to even stepping on the pitch, right? Being consistent, right? Because in the 9 to 5, you're not going to be late. So you're not going to apply that same thing to a pro league. That's the mindset that you have to switch on to. And also outside of the pitch is the front office, how important that is, man. I think, in an amateur league, you have one guy essentially just doing everything, the team management aspect, but that's not going to cut it in the pro. You need a team. You need a team for marketing. You need a team for administrative things. You need a team for on the field aspects. You need team for game day. You need a team, bro. It's not something that you can just put together through one person. And that was one of the things that we had to learn. It was a big learning curve for us in the beginning initially, because we're trying to involve people that, for one, are authentic and really for what we're trying to do. And that was one of the learning curves for us, right? We kept Jay, as the great person he is, giving opportunity to people. And sometimes people took advantage of that, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we learned from it. Every year we ascend, got better and better and better until we accomplish what we accomplished of late, man.
Talk about okay, so I know from UPSL and there's other various leagues
Mm-hmm.
that like okay, yeah, you have to have this many bleachers or you need to play in this sort of situation. I think USL 2 has a rule where like you can't play at a high school stadium, but you still
Yeah,
need to have like X number of bleachers or whatever, which like doesn't make any sense to me, but
yeah.
whatever. Um, what are some of the requirements that now you're going into a pro situation, right? So, also side note, uh, if you play Football Manager
Mm-hmm.
and you're taking a team from like super low leagues, like a Road to Glory type
Yeah,
situation, then all of a
yeah,
sudden you got to start investing your budget into a stadium and having
yeah,
these like you need to have X number of seats and you need to have this sort of infrastructure to support it and like
yeah.
whatever the situation is. So all right, so you agree with Nisa, and now Nisa's like, okay, now you need to have XYZ things.
Mhm.
What are some of those things? And then were there any big surprises?
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely some big surprises. But some of the things, I guess, on the field was the stadium requirement, in the sense that you had to have a stadium that hold at least capacity of 4 to 5,000. Um, and also it had locker rooms associated, right? That's the bare minimum, right?
Hmm.
It has to have that because you're trying to provide a professional environment for obviously your fans and the teams that are playing as well. But it's also little things like the ambulance, the standing ambulance had to be there. Like that's a thing. That's an expense. So to answer your question from that is how expensive everything was and how a major of a shift from operating at um an amateur comfortably to now you have salary staff, player salary, game day expenses, like league dues. You got, bro, it just like people do not understand how much it's needed, right? And if you're not familiar with that type of environment, which again, this was new to us, it's very challenging. So in that aspect, it was definitely very difficult trying to balance um, the expenses of running a professional team. And you have to think about it as well. We're growing, we're new. So we're pushing out all this money, right? Where's the revenue, right? Our biggest revenue are now focused on ticket sales and merch, right? If we don't have partnerships with Greatly, we had a few here and there, but nothing to the point that, you know, is we saw a profit, because you have to realize that anytime you start a business, you're not going to see a profit for at least 2 to 3 years, sometimes longer, right? So it was the same thing for us, and that's why again I always have to big up Jay, because and his fellow partners as well, fellow owners, for how much they invested in the club to take it where it is. Um, nothing nothing can ever be ill said about that man. So for it's kind of tough for me to say this for things to end in this manner, especially putting like a negative outlook on the brand. It's really hurtful, because if not a lot of people know exactly what it took for us to get here and for them to essentially and things like that. It's painful, man,
You mean in terms of the ineligibility
for
piece?
sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can imagine because I don't did you watch the Welcome to Wrexham documentary series
love that.
on
That's one of my favorite shows, dude.
me
Yeah.
too, 100%. And you see this kind of firsthand because I'm not gonna make you spit out whatever the numbers are, but like, and obviously their numbers are bigger than yours just due to
Mhm.
the nature of the
I
situation.
can
But
give you what it is on the lowest end. for you to survive.
Okay. So, but so like they're talking about like, oh yeah, we're gonna be millions in the hole this year, and so you mean we also have to pay for this, and we also have to pay for this, and these
Mhm.
guys are not like these guys have money.
Yep.
Um, and you see kind of all the little things, right? You need the physios
Mhm.
and getting the new gym equipment or the massage equipment, or you need a new massage table, or you need a new like kit room or whatever, or you like all these little things that start to add up from that first like when you get the list of like things that you need or things
Mhm.
that you're aiming for, is there a like you guys come together and you're like, oh shit, like this is
Yeah.
so
Yep.
talk about that first like transition and then the things kind of that fell into place to bring it to where it is because now you guys have been in a professional club for what three years now, something like that.
My fourth year.
It's fourth year. So talk to that initial kind of like oh shit moment and then how you guys sorted through that because I can imagine myself being like we need this, and this.
Yeah.
What if we just stayed at UPSL?
Exactly. The oh shit moment was how much money was being pushed out and how much money was getting returned. That was the oh shit moment. But to be more in detail, if you think about this, right? Let me put it in a basic way, right? The position where we at the time we had multiple owners that were obviously investing in the club and trying to make sure all the players were well taken care of in terms of financially within reason, right? So players were fairly making enough money to be able to survive in a sense, right? And that's not something that other clubs were doing. This is just off the the authenticness from the owners, making sure these players are able to survive on a monthly basis based on what they're paid, right? We had to learn that in the sense that I get it, that's what we want to do, but we also have to work within reason, you know, adjusting the salary structure was something that was definitely that was necessary to do. In the first year, I think that's something that was very we should have did better. Let me put it that way. So the following years after that, structure was definitely created, so we didn't have so it didn't impacted us in the long run. But in terms of the game day expenses, dude, the traveling, bro, traveling, talking about first year coach bus flight, you dropping easy 80 to 100K easily just for traveling. So think about that. And this is traveling in the professional manner, right? You have the coach bus, you have, you know what I mean? You look good. Everybody looks good, bro. That's man. Mm-mm. That first year, it was a lot. So we were spoiled in every facet. But when we realized the more and more is we had to cut costs in order in order for us to survive and restructure in other areas in terms of marketing so we can grow the visibility so we can start bringing in more and more revenue in and definitely improving that aspect and bringing a team that can focus, right? Because at the time the person I have to give credit to for our first year, his name is Evan Ramus, he was the vice president. At that time, I had transitioned from playing because I got injured to the team manager. Jay, the president, felt I was more valuable to the club as on the front office versus playing. You know, I didn't think so, but it is what it is in that aspect because I respect him as a man, and obviously he's like an older brother to me. So obviously I'm gonna take his word for that. So it's a sacrifice that you have to do in that end, and I don't regret it one bit. But um, to answer your question, bro, it's not having all of the right people in key areas, right? And just relying on people's expertise in other areas and try to apply it in this environment, right? This person was a um, marketing guy in this corporate world. Let's see how he can apply that to here. But there's other things that that's needed apart from that, right? We need a guy that can talk to sponsors, to potential partners, right? We need someone that's going to be doing the administrative. We need someone that's going to be doing the game day. We need interns, bro. It's so much that's needed that I don't think those of them that aspire to be pro understand. And also, we're trying to build a brand, so we need someone that's actually managing our brand, right? And if they don't have the experience or in any fashion of marketing, that could be a detriment, you know? Then on top of that, you got to deal with people who are not understanding how everything goes and what it takes to run, bad mouthing you. So you know, it's so many things that you don't even. It's crazy. Like think about it, right? You're a minority-owned club. Majority of players are is diverse. Is either black, Hispanic, white, right? The owners are black. The majority of managers are black, right? So we're having that uphill battle in an environment that's predominantly white. So you're trying to establish something in the community that's never been done. And you're going to, unfortunately for us, we're always going to have resistance. It just comes with the territory. All right. Because the questions are, how are they able to do this? Where are they getting the funded? Like, you know what I mean? Those type of things that we have to deal with, unfortunately. But again, man, it is what it is when it comes to that. I've never had to worry about that because I'm working with good people, good, honest, hard working people that have gone above and beyond to create this brand, man.
From the player perspective, we
Mm-hmm.
have a teammate who played for a club uh, that will remain unnamed, um, that didn't get paid for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's got paid.
Yep.
Um, you mentioned after the first season cutting costs.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to, and this is kind of where my own experience of like people asking me if I was still going to pursue pro
Mm-hmm.
comes in, where it's like, yeah, maybe I could
Mm-hmm.
at one point have played Nissa or something like that or whatever, but I've got a good job doing other stuff,
Yeah.
and the amount of time for the return on money, like somebody,
Yep.
like there was at one point I could have had an opportunity to go try out in Tampa, like for Tampa Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, nah, man, I don't want to go. Like it would be cool, but like they would have to offer me way more money than like for me to leave what I'm doing now to go do that just doesn't make sense. So as you're cutting costs, you're trying to retain players, good players. Also, within the area that we live, the cost of living is super high.
Exactly.
So how did that work itself out, right? Because you've got some players that are in and around and have been playing with different teams in and around the area. Like a lot of guys have been in and out for a season or two. But at the same time, you've got to maintain a consistent core because the players are what, at the end of the day, bring the fans and then a significant amount of the revenue with ticket sales and merch and jersey sales and whatever else, autograph signings after games, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so if you have turnover every season,
Yeah.
there's no connection that's able to be built between the fan base and the players because they're gone every season. So well, how do you deal with that dilemma? From the standpoint of like you're not paying these guys loads of money
Mhm.
because you can't,
Yeah.
and nobody in the league can, or I guess sometimes they don't at all. Um, but like, how do you deal with that from the standpoint of a marketing standpoint versus a financial feasibility standpoint versus a, hey, we really want to provide a good product on the field standpoint? Like all these things, there's got to be a balance somewhere.
Yeah. I think um what's so difficult about that? And one thing I can pride myself on, we never had that issue in terms of paying players. Everybody's always been paid well. So I'm grateful for that. Can't speak for other clubs, unfortunately. Um, but but so it really just focuses on two things, right? The first thing, even though the turnover is there, a lot of players incoming, outgoing, they believed in what we're trying to create. Like they believed in the brand. So when it came to the approach of, okay, man, we cannot operate from this financial standpoint because it's not sustainable. It's just not. And we've having these conversations. with the players, and we're having a conversation with the staff, and everybody's on board and understanding of that. That tells you what we're creating is authentic, right? It's people. These people that are with us, and those that are not, they're going to step out, and that's essentially what Jay and the fellow owners as well always wanted to create, something that's for us. But if you're not understanding of what it takes to get there, then you don't have to be part of it. So in a sense, when it comes to that turnover, those that left, it was either for the best for the club or for them, which is no issue. But those that stayed, they understood what we're trying to achieve as a brand, what we're trying to do and impact the community. So that approach resonated on the field, but also our impact off the field with being engaged with the community in terms of doing clothing events, doing any type of community outreach, trying to establish something and get us a massive foothold in the community. They know who we are. And this little thing is creating game day experiences that's memorable, man. And this is one of the most authentic things that we had the pleasure of experiencing. The Old Bay Brigade. That is our supporters club. That was authentic. We did not ask anyone to create that, bro. It's a bunch of dudes. One of the guys that's leading, his name is Alex. He's the one that led it. He created it after a Bobcats game. Next thing you know, we have a whole supporters club on Twitter. And those guys are completely unaffiliated in us in terms of we are the ones that are running it. It's their own thing. And they're forever part of us. And we're forever grateful because they help us spread a visibility amongst the soccer world in the DMV and even further, bro. So again, the key factor was making sure we're creating something authentic that people wanted to be part of, regardless of the financial um, changes that was necessary to accomplish that. And at the same time, making sure that you have the right amount of people that just as authentic in what you're trying to create, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So the brand is authentic, but you also have to have the people associated with the brand just as authentic to make sure it goes where it needs to go. And clearly, we've done a good job of that. Obviously, it's always been learning curves in anything we do, but in terms of making sure this is something that's been different and a good experience is it's no tall task, but I think we've done a pretty good job of that, man.
Yeah, I would say so. I think I've not heard. I remember maybe it was 2 years ago there was some like negative chatter within some of the, like that player. Like you'd hear things here and there, but like it was never. It was always just like rumors or whatever,
Yeah.
this and that. But like by and large, especially there was a guy. Oh, what's his name? Mike, the guy that ran the World Cup pop up.
Okay. Mhm.
He's always posting about Bobcats games and all this stuff, and it feels super authentic. But I was gonna. Well, it is. I know it is. Well, one thing I was going to ask you was the Annapolis Blues
Mhm.
situation. They've been around for like 2 or 3 years now, and
Yeah.
they're drawing crazy crowds.
Insane.
Um,
Insane.
so I have no idea how they did that because it was like their first game, and it's like 8,000 people, and I was like,
So we briefly got insight. So they basically there was a I don't know the baseball team associated with Annapolis, but it was a baseball team that was uh I don't know if they were playing in the same. They were playing obviously around the same area in Annapolis. So the GM was a former GM of DC United, to my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken. So one, he already has insight of how to do this at a larger scale.
oh, well, that'll
And
do it.
yeah, so think about that. So him tapping into the fan base of the baseball team, right, was one of the ways of how he pushed for fans, obviously on the soccer side. But they were literally saying, bro, they were on the street, creating flyers, passing them out, just that whole word of mouth feel until it kept growing and growing and growing and growing. Those guys are averaging 7K fans, bro. Recently, I think they broke like 11K, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. It's,
something nuts.
it's insane, bro. At the not even at a professional level. Imagine that, man. So
Yeah. Are you taking lessons learned from that in terms of incorporating things moving forward? So I guess that's a good segue into like what's next for you guys. But from the standpoint of taken some lessons learned from what they're doing, but also I think there's a kind of a relative enthusiasm for high level soccer that isn't MLS. Like I think MLS has made one or two public facing
Hmm.
mistakes in the last couple of years
Yeah.
through a variety of things. The Open Cup kind of debacle of last season.
Mm.
For those that are not aware of what I'm talking about, basically, bottom line was the MLS was like, "Oh, our teams are not going to play an Open Cup because of we don't value it or
Mhm.
what." Basically, it was a bad look. Regardless of if they had a good reason in their heads, it was the optics weren't good, right? And I've talked about this on the show a lot of like even if something is true, you still have to get the optics and the marketing out, and they did a poor job of that, at least from what I've consumed.
Yeah.
They've done a couple things like that, and I think people, at least speaking for myself, from DC United
Mhm.
being the local team here, their stadium amazing.
Mhm.
I really don't want to go pay $15 for a beer and $20 for a hot dog that I could get at Giant for a total of $4.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. Gas grocery prices have
Both
been
things. Yeah.
kind of
Inflation.
high. But anyways, point being is like if I want to go see a high level soccer game with my friends, I you would almost rather go to an Annapolis Blues game or something like that. Obviously, the stadiums are not as nice, but
Yeah.
I think there's a real market to be tapped into there.
Sure.
So, given your guys' situation with the ineligibility,
Mhm.
whatever nonsense, what's next for you guys in terms of league, but then also the planning for taking lessons learned from Annapolis, trying to tap into some of the DC United fan base, things like that, and how are those things like? What's things looking for you guys moving forward?
Sure, man. Obviously, I don't want this perception to be that Bobcats is folding. That's definitely not happening in no shape or form. Obviously, recently had a meeting planning for what we're going to do next, and can't give out that information quite yet. That's not
Ah, I was trying to get the breaking news.
that's
No, I'm
gonna
just
be a
kidding.
surprise. But however, just know that we are definitely still on board with maintaining a professional team. Um, trying obviously our objective is always to extend to the highest level, right? So what's required of that is the investors, obviously, So if you investors out there, in the sense that if you are looking for an authentic project that we built from scratch that has community impact, that has great people, and has the potential to really do good within the community and even further. I think of Bobcats. I don't think I know Bobcats is a brand that should be trusted in that sense. We've showed that in the past 4 years, regardless of how things have concluded our our former league. But the objective is always to ascend, man. That's and that is the case. That's what we're approaching for. So to answer your question, we don't have a set date in terms of when it's going to happen, but no, it's going to happen. That much I can say.
Fair enough,
Yeah,
Mr. Cece. Fair
yeah.
enough. I was hoping to squeeze it out there. That's
Yeah,
all
man.
right.
That was all good, bro.
No, no, no. Well, I know we're running a little bit short on time for you. You got another obligation in a few minutes, so
Yeah.
I feel like that's a semi-decent place to wrap up. But do you got any last nickels for the people listening, either from you personally or from the team perspective that you want to share?
Man, the main thing I want to share, man, for one, obviously, I want to thank the community. Without them, we obviously our motto is for all. So we stand by that, right? But honestly, without them and their support, regardless of what has happened, um, we want to be where we are today, and I think where we're trying to send to, we require more of that, right? We require that connection more so increases our visibility. So what I ask for them is to continue to show the support for Bobcats, for growing teams, for amateur teams in the DMV area throughout the U.S. Man, continue to show support for your local squads because you never know what can happen. You never know what it can ascend to. It's so important. We need to create more of a football culture or soccer culture in the states. I feel like it's being spreaded and seeded, but it's not unified, right? I feel like we can all help each other, right? Annapolis Blues is one of the teams that we have connected with. We've done a community event. We even played at their facility. It was great. It was a great time. Um, Obviously, we can put our best product because it was conflicting with games, but nonetheless, the fact that we were able to establish a relationship shows us we're open to working with others, right? And I'm sure it will be reciprocated in that manner as well. But the main thing for me is I want to thank everyone for being part of the club. Thank you for your continued support. And we ask that you continue to push for us, um, continue to push towards us ascending to the next level in terms of support. And we're looking forward to what the future holds.
Beautifully said. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Um, Links to all the stuff that Bobcats tickets or whatever for next season, the website, etc. We'll put that in the description.
For sure.
Um, and I think that's it. I don't have anything else.
Hey, man, it's all good, man. It's all good.
Well,
Hey,
sweet.
but before we even wrap up, man, listen, I
Hmm.
got to give kudos to my guy, Eric, man. Like, I mean, this is your time to shine, my guy. So let me give you some love, man. Listen, I just met this guy. I bumped into him a few times, probably playing ball. It's
Yeah.
quality guy, man. But honestly, Eric, man, I appreciate you inviting me your platform, shedding light and into our brand. And recently meeting you on the Annapolis, man. It's been a pleasure, dude. You're quite the character in more ways than one. Top baller, guy that I always enjoy playing with. It's a good indication of how good you are, is how fast you can establish a chemistry with a player. Like
Hmm.
you're one of the guys. It didn't take very long for me to know what was going
No,
on.
no, no, no,
Like
not
it's
at
very
all.
quick. So I rate guys like that very highly, bro. I rate your IQ. But I remember, I don't know you guys, Eric is being nice about this, but bro, the first training session, my brain was fried. I remember we were doing that. I don't know what it was, but dude, I don't know what sense
Oh, it was we were throwing the ball up in the air,
throwing the
yeah?
ball up. So essentially, you have to throw the ball up, right, and play the other ball and catch it afterwards, bro. I looked like I had three left feet, bro. It was madness. It was diabolical. I never wanted to experience anything like that. But Eric was being so cool about it, so professional. Like, dude, like, like it's okay. But in his head, I'm like, where did they get this guy from, bro?
Nah, man. Hey, look,
No, but
Co
it was
hey,
mad
Co
dope, bro.
Coach Phillip, shout out to Coach Phillip. He
Yeah,
does that every time there's new people.
yeah.
That's when we do
That's
it
his thing. I
because
know
he
it is.
loves doing it. It's
That
honestly is very funny sometimes. Like not at the expense of the other person, but to see
yeah.
Coach Phillip be happy that he gets to show somebody else
Yep,
this drill that
showcase.
nobody can do, and then turn
Exactly.
around and be like, "Watch Kareem do it," and it's
Yeah.
like,
But no, that's always been a thing, bro. I enjoy it, bro. Honestly, that experience was mad dope, man. But honestly, being on the team, we gotta give a shout out to Annapolis Blues. You guys are creating a wonderful product, man. Like,
Arlington, bro, wrong team.
oh, excuse me, I said, excuse me, too much Annapolis, Arlington. Um, the product, bro. For those of you who are not aware, listen, I'm trying to tell you, man. They're the truth. Shout out to Coach Phillip, man. I won't travel 45 minutes for nonsense, man. Listen, I have a full-time job. I got like four jobs, and I have a daughter. Right? It's a lot going on. Daughter is really for real, man. It's not easy out here, bro. So the product that they're giving out, top tier, top tier. And I will highly advise that you pay attention to what Arlington is doing, man.
Yeah, we try, man. Yeah, I was about to say one when you say you met me at Annapolis, I was about to say one correction, Arlington, but no, we got it. Um, yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie, some of the best footy that I've played in a while. Coach Phillip is great, and
Yeah,
what we're trying to create is cool, and I'm happy to be a part of it for sure. So, um, appreciate you bringing that to light as well. So
sure.
obviously, big game this weekend. We'll see.
Yeah,
Hope fingers crossed it goes in our favor. Um, this won't be out by the time that the game
yeah.
or the game will have happened already by the time this is out. So, um, but yeah. All right. Links in the description.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sesay, for your time. Really appreciate it. Always lovely conversation.
Yes, sir.
And for those listening, stay tuned. Go check out the links. And we'll see you guys next time.
Definitely.
Peace.
Peace, guys.